Seth Rogers is with us, and the Rogers family spokesperson, Tony Mathis, as well. Thank you both for coming here. What's your reaction, Seth and Tony, to what happened today or yesterday in court with Bullhorn Betty? And what are your thoughts about Bullhorn Betty and what she's been doing?
Well, Vinny, first off, thank you for having us tonight. Let me be crystal clear about something. That entire family lied under oath to get those protective orders. This family has spent more time trying to silence people than they've spent looking for Sebastian. We know for a fact that there's no proof that Sebastian walked out of that home. And it makes you wonder what else they're lying about, Vinny. It also makes you wonder what would happen if Sebastian would have been able to file a protective order against his stepfather.
Seth, your reaction to what happened and what is happening in all of this?
My professional opinion, I would say something along the lines of Chris and Katie did something to my son. They're using Sumner County to cover it up and to hide themselves from the actual law.
And let me ask you, Seth, and we have no independent information. We know that police are saying there's no suspect. No one's been named as a suspect in any of this. But this seems to be, at least from my perspective, Seth, is it a change in the way you are seeing what has transpired through all this? Are you seeing things differently than you did before?
It's the evidence. I still believe my son is alive. I still believe he's somewhere. But the fact is that he was at their house last. There is no evidence that he ever left the house. And they, as Tony has stated, they have spent more money and time trying to get people to not speak about Sebastian than speaking about Sebastian. Sumner County hasn't come out since April with anything. And Katie won't come out and speak, won't ask for help to find Sebastian. I really have to say that she never loved her son. And on top of that, I have the DCS reports that I've written, that I have literally took me an attorney to get them. Sebastian deserves a restraining order from those two psychopaths.
Tony, now you've accused them of lying, the Proudfoots, right? So what were they lying about from your perspective? And again, we have no independent information or confirmation that they said anything that was untrue or verification that what they said was true, like either way. But what were they lying about from your perspective, and what's the evidence from your perspective that they are not telling the truth?
Well, they actually were lying, and it was proven in court that they were lying about what they stated in the protective orders, which was that she had had physical contact with them, that she was following, stalking, and harassing them. And even on the stand, Mr. Proudfoot admitted that he had never met her in person. So in my opinion, it's a little difficult to be stalking somebody that you've never met in person. And it goes to the many inconsistencies that have been told by Mr. Proudfoot since the very first interview. Not one of his interviews have matched up, Vinny.
And when you say the interviews haven't matched up, you're not talking about, so I just want to make this clear to everyone watching, you're talking about the disappearance of Sebastian, not about 100%. Bullhorn Betty in this case.
Yeah, the Bullhorn Betty lies were just another long string in the lies that they've told since the beginning. If you go back and break the interviews down from the very first interview they did all the way from Nancy Grace and beyond before they quit coming out in public, you can see one inconsistency after the next. And the great thing about telling the truth, Benny, is when you're doing that, it's always the same. It doesn't change.
So what's the most material inconsistency that you believe has been stated from Chris and or Katie?
Regarding Sebastian?
Absolutely. That's what I care about at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Many inconsistencies told about the phone calls, the time of the phone calls, the bedtimes, what happened after he went to bed, just, that entire 10 to 12 hour period, many inconsistencies. Also, not rock solid alibis and a lot of time that's unaccounted for. They were also, probably the biggest thing, Benny, is that they told Nancy Grace that they were told by TBI not to take a polygraph, and we found out later from TBI that is 1,000% not accurate.
That's a big one. That's a big one. Okay, Tony Mathis, Seth Rogers is going to stay with us. We've got more to talk about. We're going to take you inside the courtroom so you can hear some of the testimony from today, and you'll see Chris Proudfoot on the witness stand. Just want to make it clear, like, the First Amendment versus prior restraint of speech is serious business, and the judge made a decision today keeping her away from them, but how far did it go towards what she can say about this case? We'll be back.
Have other people contacted you based off of Ms. Griffin's conduct on her social media accounts?
Hundreds.
Okay. How often does that happen?
Daily.
Is it possible for you to avoid the media circuits that surrounds Ms. Griffin's conduct?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Have people gotten your personal phone number that way?
Yes, sir.
Have they gotten your email?
Yes, sir.
They message you on Facebook?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's Chris Proudfoot. Bullhorn Betty goes online, provides information, and apparently her viewers or followers are sending messages and attempting to contact Chris Proudfoot. So the judge's decision has prevented Bullhorn Betty from contacting the Proudfoots. But what I heard in the decision was, it sounds like she can still talk about them. She just cannot contact them through social media, cannot contact them through text or email or any other way. He's got to stay away from them. I understand that decision. Whether you agree or disagree, it's up for debate, but that's the judge's decision. But it seems that she can still talk about them. Now, Chris Proudfoot was asked another important question when it comes to a restraining order, right? To prevent someone from going somewhere or contacting someone, there's got to be a reason. He's asked, why are you afraid of Bullhorn Betty? Take a listen.
What are you afraid of from Andre Griffin?
What am I directly afraid of, sir? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, when you make a video threatening that you want to bring a gun from another state to this state, directly in videos related to me, my wife, my family, that's a threat, plain and simple.
Okay.
She also said she was going to bring a machete, for the record.
Okay, let's bring back in Seth Rogers, Sebastian's dad, and Tony Mathis. Just a quick clarification, everyone's watching that. Was she threatening to bring a machete to go after the Proudfoots?
Well, Benny, you being one of the better investigative reporters in this case, you know that if you take a 4 or 5 second clip out of an hour-long video, you can twist that and turn that into anything you want it to be. When she was talking about the things that she was going to need to be walking through these heavily wooded areas, one of the things that she mentioned she would probably need is a machete. But you don't get to see all that because that doesn't fit the narrative. Does that make sense?
On top of that, if she had stated that she was going to bring a machete, don't you think the felon that made the video for the Proudfoots would have actually clipped that in there? And it wasn't clipped in there. And if you notice, the attorney, that shyster that was sitting there representing the Proudfoots and the Bowersox, when they asked Chris the question, have you been contacted? They never asked who contacted them, because nobody that is on Betty's team or my team is actually reaching out to speak to these pathetic excuses for parents.
And Benny, if you actually listen to what was said there in court, the attorney asked the question, have you been contacted by people regarding things that Betty has been saying?
Right.
The people that are contacting Chris are his people. They're not Betty's people. They're contacting Chris saying, this is what Betty said today. This is what she said yesterday. Well, all you've got to do is tell those people, if you don't want to hear it, to quit contacting you. That shouldn't make you afraid of a 5-foot female as a man that has a strong history of being able to deal with females.
So let's refocus now and get back to what this is really about, which is finding your son, Seth. So, Sebastian, I'm sorry. Yeah, to find Sebastian. Your relationship with Sebastian's mom seems at this point is completely non-existent. I know early on there was talk about trying to work together, and it seemed like you were trying to come together to do something, but that just doesn't exist. What? So what is the status of the search for Sebastian? As you sit here tonight, what is going on? Who is doing what, whether it's law enforcement, any private organizations, members of the public, whoever? What is the status of all of that?
We have we have over 50 people that are working on this case. Just in investigators, FBI. I mean, been working with the FBI. That's how we got a reward out there. Sumner County, the people that are in charge of Sumner County refuse to connect the dots. So we have to go beyond Sumner County. My son is somewhere, and me personally, I believe Katie knows.
Vinny, you can tell that we're a little bit more uptight tonight than we usually are. But we've watched the antics. We've watched Chris smile and laugh and joke in court when we've got a broken father and Seth that's missing his son. You guys sent a very, very professional, independent camera and photographer to cover this court case, a girl by the name of Athena. We found out after the court case was over that Chris looked at her and winked at her in the middle of the trial.
Was flirting with.
We've got a real problem with that when there's a missing child.
He's supposed to be married.
Yeah.
Val's not doing anything anymore.
So at the let's talk about this now. What can there's going to be a lot of people watching right now and say, listen, I want to do something. I want to help. What can they do?
A lot of things, Vinny. They can pray. They can continue to spread awareness. They can put flyers up. They can talk about him in a positive way, regardless of which side of the family they support. Because remember, this is about Sebastian. It's not about Seth. It's not about Tony. It's not about Chris and Katie or any of the crazy grandparents. It's not about any of that. This is about Sebastian. And if you are here for Sebastian, your focus should be Sebastian Wayne
Fight
Drake
Sebastian.
Rogers. That's it. Nothing else.
Absolutely.
He's the one missing. Unfortunately, the judge wanted to sit there and offer his condolences for our loss. My son is missing. I understand that judge's child passed away, and that made him emotional in this case. Judgment from the judge should have been blind to begin with. He was emotional, and I'm pretty sure my son is lost. He is alive. He is missing. All right, that judge buried their child.
Seth Rogers,
Sebastian is alive.
we're out of time for tonight, but I appreciate it. And